Testing 1, 2, 3, testing.
I have a long time holding my peace. I have been still and refrain myself. Now I will cry like a woman in labor. I will destroy and devour at once. I will make waste mountains and hills and dry up all the herbs. And I will make the rivers islands, and I will dry up the pools. And I will bring the blind by way that they knew not. I will lead them in paths they have known. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked things straight. These things will I do to them, and not forsake them. They shall be turned back. They should be greatly ashamed that trust in graven images.
Good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. All right. Some technical problems here. All right. So we're continuing in chapter 42. Picking up, what did I say? Verse 18? Yeah. Right. Of course, we're gonna read it again. I see nothing but value in reading it again. Behold my servant whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. He shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. A bruised reed shall he not break, and the smoking flax shall he not quench. He shall bring forth judgment unto truth. He shall not fail nor be discouraged till he have set judgment in the earth, and the isles shall wait for his law. Thus saith God the Lord, he that created the heavens, and stretched them out, he that spread forth the earth, and that which cometh out of it, he that giveth breath unto the people upon it, and spirit unto them that walk therein. I, the Lord, have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee, and will give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles, to open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prison, and them that sit in darkness out of the prison house. I am the Lord, that is my name, and my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to the graven images. No other. Behold, the former things are come to pass, and new things do I declare. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. Sing unto the Lord a new song, and his praise from the end of the earth. Ye that go down to the sea and all that is therein, the isles and the inhabitants thereof. Let the wilderness and the cities thereof lift up their voice. The village, let them give glory to the Lord, and declare his praise in the islands. The Lord shall go forth as a mighty man. He shall stir up jealousy like a man of war. He shall cry, yea, roar. He shall prevail against his enemies. I have long time holden my peace. I have been still and refrained myself. Now will I cry like a travailing woman. I will destroy and devour at once. I will make waste mountains and hills, and dry up all their herbs, and will make the rivers islands, and dry up all the pools. Too many words there. And I will bring the blind by a way that they knew not. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked things straight. These things will I do unto them, and not forsake them. They shall be turned back. I didn't need to read it that fast. They shall be turned back. They shall be greatly ashamed that trust in graven images, that say to the molten images, Ye are our gods. Hear ye deaf, and look ye blind, that ye may see. Who is blind but my servant? Or deaf as my messenger that I sent? Who is blind as he that is perfect, and blind as the Lord's servant? Seeing many things, but thou observest not. Opening the ears, but he heareth not. just had a different perspective on that. But I don't know if it's right. Anyways, I'm not going to go into it just now. The Lord is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes. They are hid in prison houses. They are for prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none saith restore. Who among you will give ear to this? Sorry. Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for a spoil, and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord? He against whom we have sinned, for they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. Therefore he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger, and the strength of battle, and it hath set him on fire round about, yet he knew it not, and it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart. And I thought for a second, probably should have picked it up with verse 17. We're going to pick it up there anyways. We're picking up from verse 1, really. As I pass this, cry nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. I think I have nothing to add to that, what we said. Nothing to add that for sure. There was... Well, yeah, the prisoners from the prison and them sitting down. We're about to talk about the prison again. And I think I had some... as I read it, it was alive in my mind. But I don't think it's really anything that I'd say would add to it. I hope it comes alive to you also. But it's not that I can explain everything precisely what he means, but I sort of get it. I will make waste mountains and hills. Okay. Yep. Verse 17. They shall be turned back, they shall be greatly ashamed that trust in graven images, that say to the molten images, ye are gods. Hear ye deaf, and look ye blind, that ye may see. Now, definitely, prior to this, God is speaking, but the Lord never stops speaking. It almost feels like a commentary, but I guess it isn't right to break it there. But it felt like, well, definitely there's a pause. Of course, there's a period. And maybe even a new paragraph, but certainly not a new thought, really. Because it's still, he will be faithful to his people, that put their trust in him, that wait upon him. Those that trust in the Lord, that wait upon the Lord, will mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be faint. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint. And he also promises to lead the blind. Right? But who is blind? Who is the most, in a sense, when it says, who is blind but my servant, it's almost like, who is the most blind person of all? Who has the most blindness? My servant. And who has the least ability to hear? My messenger. Who is blind is he that is perfect, and blind is the Lord's servant. I had a different perspective on this. I'm like, what if I tried to apply this to Christ? You know what I mean? And in a certain sense, it makes sense because, Jesus said there were certain things that only the Father knew. You know what I mean? And since the perfect, when I read verse 1 today, it really struck me as like, Jesus is the ultimate example of a God's servant. He is the suffering servant, and he is the Son of Man, the ultimate heir of Jacob, of David, of Israel, and the chosen one. And we emulate that. We want to be like Christ. We are to follow in his footsteps and grow up into him in some sense, to be the servants of God. And I have no trouble with understanding my own blindness. But from God's perspective, if you think about it, God being all-knowing, and Jesus, when he became a man, though he was, we talk about how he sort of laid aside certain aspects of divinity when he became a man. So he no longer was, while he was on the earth, all-knowing. Maybe that was not a way, whatever. There were things he said that he did not know. So, and from God's perspective, man, that's really blind. It's a lot of blind, that's a lot of loss. Like when we lose our sight, we lose so little. You know what I mean? When I think about like mankind being blind, I've known a few blind people who were very capable people. I mean, blindness hadn't held them back in life, because they refused to allow it. And they had other senses. And everyone's heard the story of Helen Keller, who was blind and deaf, and her teacher, who, I should remember her teacher's name because she's worth remembering, but it slips my mind. Anyways, but someone's yelling at, but anyways, even so, that blindness is not as much of a loss as a step down it is for God to become incarnate in man. And I don't know if that's what that means. I always took it as meaning as what I've said before. Who is blind but my servant? The servants of God are blind, or in Iran, he could be calling, because Jacob is called to be God's servant. That's why God is remarking on their tendency to worship idols. And that's why he's saying, because they're not the heathen. They're not supposed to worship idols. He gave them his law. You know what I mean? And they were not supposed to, so they were supposed to be that. So if we interpret the servant here as Jacob, right? But it is not untrue to say in the ultimate sense also that Christ had a sort of blindness in terms of his divine power. You know what I mean? He laid it aside. That's how it's understood, as far as I know. That in becoming man, he laid aside certain aspects of divinity, as far as powers and such, and did not use them while he was a man. For a perfect, let me give an example, lest someone think I'm making this up, of course. I always forget, I always assume sort of people are at the same knowledge level, and that's probably not the right way to do it. When Jesus said in like Mark 13, I didn't bring it up yet here. Mark 13. These things knoweth no man, neither the Son, but the Father. I just want to show you the verse. Plus the actual... It's funny how much, even though this song, I've been singing this song for so long. I haven't sung it in a while, though. Why is it not up? Oh, okay, I see. Wrong one. It's this one with the little picture. Okay, where it says, knoweth no man, but of that day and of that hour, knoweth no man, no, not the angels which are in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father. Take heed and watch and pray. There's something that he didn't know. The day and the time of the day and the hour. I mean, that you may think like, oh well, he might know within a week. I think it means more than that. He didn't know when. It wasn't when he became a man. That was something he didn't know. And that's the point. It's like on some level, it's like, it's astonishing. You know what I mean? That in becoming a man, there would be a sort of blindness, wouldn't there? And so, that's a way to look at it. I've never looked at it that way before. I've never looked at a commentary on it. I'm sure someone's said that before. I hope someone has, actually, because I don't like coming up with ideas that are entirely novel. When you come up with ideas that no one's ever come up with before, it doesn't it always on some level, there's a double hazard. One, you become puffed up with pride and thinking like, what a genius you are, thinking something no one else ever thought of, and the other hazard is the reason no one ever thought of it is because it's a bad idea. That's the double hazard of when you come up with some great new idea. You might just be not understanding how horrible an idea it is. So we continue the theme of those that trust in idols, they're going to be turned back, they're going to be ashamed. But those who trust in the Lord will be rewarded. But the thing he calls us is now, it's important now, while we explored that in a sense of like, okay, the ultimate man was also blind in a certain sense. If Christ could be blind, then so could I. There's no point in my walk on the earth as a man that I should expect to know everything. Because the Lord Jesus himself, at the end of his ministry, was not entirely privy to every one of God's counsels by design, but even so. And that is part of the example. I shouldn't expect to exceed my Lord. Why would I expect that? So now I can look at myself and say, like, I have blind spots. I have things I don't know. Or worse, I have things I think I know that I don't. The one that is perfect, and I talked about that in the terms of he ought to be perfect. Jacob ought to be perfect, but he's blind. I talk about Israel being blind. We took at it from that perspective, and that's certainly true. Israel was blind. And I think that's primarily the angle Isaiah's talking about. He's thinking Israel when he hears this, when he writes it. And there's also a personal aspect to it where you got to look at yourself and examine yourself. You think you serve God? Part of your responsibility as a servant of God is to really examine yourself. Be serious about it. What kind of person are you? What is this you're doing? I see so many ministries, and I'm like, do these people examine themselves? Just a bit. Take a little humility and look at the things they've done. It's because sometimes there's a bit of, I think there's people who get up in front of other people and talk. There's a bit of shamelessness that sort of comes with that territory. You have to be able to be in front of people and be, and not particularly be worried about it. And so that tends to, some people who get into that are going to be people who have just no shame. I don't think I'm one of those people. Actually, I'm always very, I definitely experience shame. That's for sure. But I don't mind being, my lack of fear in front of a crowd mostly has to do with my own confidence in my abilities. Because I think I'm competent to talk to people, and I think I should be talking to people. It's more of a, if anything, it's a byproduct of overconfidence, not a lack of shame, though, because it's like I've been embarrassed many times at my overestimation of my own abilities. Certainly. But that's the thing, is that people, maybe they're the same, but they haven't had the same opportunities to be ashamed and to experience failure or, the results of being blind. And I don't want to say blind people stumble. Let me put it this way. Someone recently blinded will stumble all over the place. Especially if you're used to seeing. It's like, I don't want to insult actual blind people who are used to, if you're born blind, you're getting around fine. I mean, the world isn't exactly designed for people born blind, but they're good at navigating their world. I've seen, I don't want to make it seem like, oh yeah, when you're blind, you're like, blah, blah, blah. They can't get around. They have homes. They take care of themselves. It's not like a death sentence or something. Like you just, you have to, it's hard. I remember in elementary school wearing a blindfold and trying to get around, and that's, just so we could experience it. Or even doing it on your own or stumbling around in the dark. It's interesting how in the dark I get mental pictures of where everything is, but they're often wrong. But I bet if you're blind, you get those mental pictures pretty good, and so you know where stuff is spatially. But that takes time to develop, and it works probably really well if you're born blind, but if you are not, Like recently blinded. If I was recently blinded, I'd be knocking over everything and probably feeling really sorry for myself. That's what I would probably do. Until the Lord would help me out. At least stop feeling sorry for myself. Okay, seeing many things but thou observest not, opening the ears, but he heareth not. I can give enlightenment to others. I can say things. People, that really opened my eyes. Just in a moment, I can say words that people are inspired or whatever, right? But how do I do that to myself? I can't give myself things I don't know. And the only one who can open my eyes is the Holy Spirit. And without him, without his aid, I am blind. Without the aid of the Holy Spirit, I am a blind man as far as being a servant of God. I'm just groping in the dark. I remember what it was like reading the scriptures. It was different. They were alive, but not as alive. It felt a lot more, I don't know, opaque. I think it's just part of it's being familiar with the text. That definitely helps, because people who are familiar with the text definitely can read it better, probably, hopefully. But also, I don't know, experience in life makes certain things make more sense. I remember when I was young, I didn't know, I had nothing to say about the world. I remember trying to write songs, and I literally didn't, they all kind of like, I would gravitated towards like, kind of like, fantasy sort of, in my mind, the songs I were writing about were about swords and things like that, And that's when I was in high school. And the thing is, that wasn't what was popular at the time. And I had no sense of like anything until I found the scriptures. Then all of a sudden, I felt like I had something to sing about. Something that made sense of the world to me. It's only as an older person that I feel like I can say something. I have more to say about the world itself. Like from what God has taught me, I have a deeper insight. But through that, I also understand my own blindness. And your blindness does not diminish with time. I mean, like it. You learn more things, but you're still just as blind as you were at the beginning. Except for when God, like I said, when the scales fall off. We can have our eye, like I said, when I got the Holy Spirit, I felt like my eyes were open to a whole, like, addition to reality. And, but still, there are other aspects, that when that happens to us, we can sometimes be overwhelmed with that and be consumed with that thinking. And I thinking that we've arrived. I mean, like I said, like forgetting that God, even to his own son, though he dealt him not the Spirit by measure, Christ was not, he didn't know everything. Because there were many things that wouldn't be necessary for him to know. But the fact that it's specified, because I believe in predestination and all that. But of course, when you're in the flesh, you just don't experience it that way. You're not God. And Christ himself also in the flesh experienced it as a man. It's like you can tell when he's going to, in Gethsemane, the passion there is real. It's real. So it would be real to him. Like I said, it's not like, like at the end of that Life of Brian by Monty Python, they're all up on the cross and they're all these crucified people and they're all singing, always look on the bright side of life, and I almost think like that's how people sometimes think of Christ. Some people. I know some people, including me almost, well, that's the way I heard it. When that's the way it came to me when some people, I'm talking about Arnold Murray, when he would talk about it, I felt like the impression I got that he was just so stoic up there. You know what I mean? And that's just not the way the garden seems. You know, I definitely think there was a certain degree of stoicism at his trial and stuff, but it's like the passion and the feelings. Even if you can compose yourself outwardly, he felt feelings that a man would feel and experienced it as a man would experience it. The Lord is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. Magnify the law. Make it great. Make the law great again. You know, to make it great, to make something, to magnify is to make it bigger. And I'm not going to look it up in Hebrew. It's fine. I mean, he's going to make it, because how does it become diminished? How does the law become small? Well, when people don't pay attention to it. Like in this country, they talk about the rule of law. You know, that laws are there. When you break the laws, the rules mean that you are punished according to the law. But on some level, if people don't follow the law, like the country's becoming lawless from the state government level, not state like, I mean the national state. I mean like the in the generic term of not the United States of America, but just like the state, not the little state, not like Illinois, but USA. There's a problem with the executive branch not following the law on the southern border, on when they broke the law to extend the eviction moratorium. And I don't have rental properties, and I'm not particularly sympathetic to landlords, but it's the law. It's their property. And a lot of them, you know, it's like some old, you know, a lot of these people are not rich by any means. You imagine you have a mortgage and you're renting the place out and they stop paying rent. You still got to pay your mortgage. So, I mean, I feel for those people. But even so, it's not about feeling. That's again, I feel for everybody. You know what I mean? Except for the people, you know, who could be paying but they just don't. After, you know, like, I'm paying my mortgage. You know, but anyways, but when people start not enforcing the law, it becomes lawless. And we got, you know, and the thing is, that's the law. You know, if they just start making it slack, what's the point? Nobody will respect it. And the land will become lawless. And the resulting chaos, you know, is a society that can't hold depredations from their adversaries, like the Assyrians. You know, this is a people robbed and spoiled on two levels. Of course, they were literally carried away into captivity. Their goods were taken. You know, but there's something more. Is that they're all of them snared in holes, hid in prison houses. Therefore, they're just, you know what I mean, they're like prisoners shut up. That's how vulnerable they are. No one's more vulnerable than a prison or someone in a hole. You know, someone down in a hole, someone in a prison house. They're defenseless, virtually, especially in the old prison houses. There's none to deliver them. They're a spoil. Right? And that's how he portrays his people. They're robbed and spoiled, so it's not just by, therefore a prey to the Assyrians. Well, how are they robbed? They're robbed and spoiled initially by their state. I mean, they're like shut up in prison, spiritually speaking, or metaphorically speaking, however you want to say it. But here it's a metaphor, anyways, because they're not. It's not. This people are like a people robbed and spoiled. No, this people is a people robbed and spoiled. They are snared in holes. There are all kinds of pitfalls in life. You know, the way I used to look at this, because when I would talk about the servant being blind, I thought of, ministers and stuff, and they are blind. It's easy to point the finger at other people. It's very easy, and that's how I took it. Sorry, actually, I took a bit of allergy medicine this morning to hopefully clear up my sinuses, but it seems to be okay. But I have a slight cold, I think. This is people I shouldn't have said that. They'll come for me. Here comes the jab. They are all of them snared in holes. They're hidden in prison houses. We fall into pitfalls of our own making. Sometimes society itself. We are robbed. How? Well, when God says he's going to make the law magnified and honorable, that's how the people get robbed and spoiled. When the law is not honored and the law is neglected, the people in charge start ruling like dictators and taking for themselves. And right now, all these packages are passing, like the trillions of dollars, are just giveaways to these big mega corporations. All the people making it's just a bunch of make work for their buddies. They're just robbing the future. It is, because who's going to pay for it? Your grandchildren may. I don't know. How are we ever going to pay for it? There's no way we're going to pay for it except by paying for it. You know what I mean? At some point, because with this kind of leadership, they're just going to default eventually. Or I don't know, or war. You know what I mean? Something. It's dangerous. And we're seeing economically, because there's so much money that there's not people to work. You know what I mean? That's the problem. Because like if they give everyone universal income, which they sort of did, if you have children, you know what I'm talking about. That disincentivizes things. And the problem is when if they give everyone $4,000 a month, who would do anything except, maybe, they would do what they want to do. Wouldn't change my life. It wouldn't. It would. No, it wouldn't change my life. It would change some things about me, I suppose. But I don't want them to give me that. Anyways, but like, a lot of people would just play video games all day. They would just sit around. Why should they go drive a truck when they don't need to? But the point is, someone needs to. We don't have the robots yet. There's people like, the robots are coming. They better come. Hurry up, robots. Where are you? We need robots fast. If they're going to start printing money, how are you going to pay for the robots? Who's going to build all the robots? Is anybody ready to build all the robots? We can't stop now. And that's what they're acting like, like as if we could. And it's going to, I got to wonder how this is going to rebound. Will they start cracking the whip? They won't whip the folks at the border, but they'll whip you. And that's how you end up in a prison house. Because we're all on the hook for it. Because all the debts are guaranteed by the taxing power of the United States government. And as they separate themselves from the people into their elite class, you don't think eventually they're going to find no problem just fleecing you for everything you've got? They're already doing it. What they're doing is just taking a bunch of money and giving it to their friends. You know what I mean? And their friends are just suddenly rich. All these politicians are so rich. How does that happen? How are they all millionaires? Can't figure that one out. The kids all have such great jobs. Guess it pays to be in politics. Of course, if you kill the goose that laid the golden egg, pretty stupid. So the lawlessness of the land causes the people to become snared and imprisoned. I used to look at this mostly in a religious sense. Like when I was young, it was churches that were imprisoning people. And it felt like that because I felt like they were hid in these churches and they weren't being told the truth. They weren't being given, and to the degree that I do think I look at church like I look at school. It's a lot of wasted time. And you're not there very long at church. Like to listen to someone just vaguely talk about God once a week is not my idea of a Christian walk. You know what I mean, you don't have to listen to me every day. And if you do, that's great. At least if it's good for you, it's good for me. I mean, I enjoy talking about it. If you like listening about it, well, perfect match. But like, there's some people who are like, they can hardly handle just a Sunday service. And so they got to make sure it's only like less than a half hour. So he gets up there just a half hour thing. He may be very clever. But I mean, even if every week you're just killing them with a great sermon, the people have to, and they don't. That's the thing, they don't. No one can kill every weekend. You're not going to come up with something great every time. I mean, I guess if I only had to come up with one speech a week, the point is I don't come up with any speeches at all. And so I don't know. I don't know if I could even do that job, per se. I shouldn't be so critical. But I've listened to a lot of them, and it's like, in some places they're just trying to please people. In other places they're really trying to please the Lord. It just depends on where you are. That's what it's going to be. Because people can do a good job of that. But the thing is, that can't be your whole walk. Either that this should be your whole walk. Listen to me 1 hour a day or whatever, however often I do it a week, 4 to 5 days a week. 4 to 5 hours a week with me, hey, you may get a lot of stuff, but you also have to talk to the Lord on your own. You shouldn't just be like, well, Paul, I listen to Paul and then I have no interactions with God outside of that. That's not right. We need to live out our walk. But I did look at this as being like trapped in churches. But I really, it doesn't speak to me like that anymore. In some ways, it is true. But it's not the church itself. It's a prison of their own mind. They're not, they aren't capable of freeing themselves from the prison that they're in mentally. They're fixated on the world and on the things of the world. They've been snookered by their leadership, who is not enforcing the law properly and is undermining them and behaving in like it is completely unethical for the government to just keep printing money. It is more than unethical. It's irresponsible. And they'll act like it's no big deal. You know why? Because they'll never have to live with the consequences. I mean, they will sort of, but not as much as other people. They're all shielded. That's the thing. It's like you're a businessman. The decisions you make about your business affect you directly. If you're in the government, if you institute it like a healthcare policy that just hurts all kinds of people and doesn't work, you don't have to do it. There's no responsibility. They never hold these people to account. Ever. They should be. I mean, at times they have, but they never do anymore. I mean, there may be a slight exaggeration, but not much. Like the failed social policies of the past 100 years, no one's accounting for them. No one's like owning up to the failures. There are people who are pointing out the failures, but institutionally, there's no reckoning. Everything stays the same. So they should never be allowed to create another department of government. We have this Homeland Security. The only reason we need a Homeland Security is because we've made other people's homelands insecure. That's The thing is, after World War II, we became an empire, essentially. We were already on our way to being an empire. course, obviously. But it's not, it's expensive. And there are consequences. And here's the thing. Badly managed empires, empires, republics haven't had a good track record at being empires. I mean, they become empires and then an emperor appears, And we already kind of have an emperor. The president. We elect a new dictator every 4 years, I guess. That's what it's becoming with this executive branch that does not regard the law. And it makes up laws by decree. Woe to them that decree unrighteous decrees. And the people are robbed and spoiled. That's how people are taken. When the law is not honored by everyone, the common people become taken advantage of because the criminal class rises to the top in the political. And the political becomes criminal. And in fact, the institutions of the state, the very instruments that are supposed to uphold the law, become criminal instruments breaking the law. And that should scare people a little bit. It should scare people who it should wake people up, but they don't realize it's going on because the press in America are traitors who don't care for the most part and just report things that the government tells them to, apparently. Mostly. They're mostly they see themselves as an almost apparatus of the state because they're all of the same mindset of the primacy and ultimate nature of the state, and they're all friends. That's the corruption that goes on in power. Power corrupts. People know that. Who gave Jacob for a spoil in Israel? He says, listen to this. We can be held in prison. Just ready prey for our adversaries. Without law and order. And none saith restore. There's none that none say restore in the sense that have power to restore. No one says that who could do anything about it. The people in the prison houses. Well, also in a sense, if you think about it, his people what? That's Jacob, my servant. He's blind. They're all of them snared in holes. They don't even. It's probably implied from the context that they are also in holes and in prison houses, blind and imprisoned. But they know neither. They don't know. And he's got his ultimate expression of that here in verse 25, right? The ultimate expression of that ignorance. God pours on him the fury of his anger and the battle and all this, and it sets him on fire. So I'm blind, I'm in prison, and now I'm on fire. It's a progressive sort of like, do you see you've got a problem, son? Can't you see you got a problem here? You're on fire. We're talking about the boiling frog. He didn't know he was on fire. Huh? Oh, what? No, I don't smell smoke. I know he's not actually on fire. It's fire around him, and it burns him. He's encircled with fire now. That's basically the idea. And it burns him. He laid it not to heart. Yes, one second, I'm going to blow my nose. Oh, I couldn't hit the mute. Okay, that's better. Thank you for your patience. I skipped over verse 24 because I just want to connect those ideas. I'm going to talk about that. My servant is blind. My people are robbed and spoiled. I mean, as God's servant, I can also be, the people, it just refers nationally, because of the lawlessness and their vulnerability, right? But they're still ignorant. Who gave Jacob for a spoil? Jacob, my servant, whom I have chosen, and Israel to the robbers. The Lord did. The Lord gave it to him. He is the one against whom we have sinned. He's saying, look at the example of Jacob and Israel. Isaiah is really looking at his own. He's as the servant of God, he himself blindly now looking at his people. At Jacob. This is the kind of self-examination you got to do. Jacob needs to look at Jacob and say, who gave us for a spoil? Who gave us to the robbers? The Lord. As he said he would. All right. Tingly. The one whom that should be doubly remembered. Oh, wait. He gave Jacob to the spoil. And now we've sinned against him? Oops. That's concerning. We've sinned against him. Him who gave Jacob to the spoil. And why is that significant? Because Jacob was his servant. Jacob was his chosen people. These were the people of God, his elect, his anointed. They were the people of God, and he gave them to the spoil because they would not walk in his ways. They were not obedient to his law. Now I understand that God has called us to perfection. But and through Christ we have forgiveness of sins. Right? And in Christian society we understand. But when we become decadent and neglectful of the Lord, and also of law itself, of right and wrong, of truth and fiction. I mean, you see it in this. I need to tell all the cultural things like the blurring, the gender and all that stuff. I got a song for that coming. But all that stuff, all the cultural stuff, you can see in it the lawlessness and the breakdown of order itself, of the natural order, of natural law. The people are not willing to acknowledge the Lord. I mean, in the reality, they're not willing to, don't forget about the Lord, as far as that. Because to acknowledge reality is a part of acknowledging the Lord. To speak the truth about the world, to speak the truth about your own self, to be truthful in all things. And so when you look at reality, you're looking at God's handiwork. It's his work. What is real is what God has made. He's done it. This is the result. I'm watching the results right now. I am the results right now. I'm living it out. When this society it knows God. It's heard of him. But it honors him not. And as it deteriorates, as the love of many waxes cold, love towards God, love towards their fellow man, just love, real love. I mean, because people, they reserve love for themselves and for their friends and family, but what about the love of all what about enough love to respect other people, even though you may not agree with them? And that's a difficult thing when you get to certain things, because certain things can't be respected. That it was a friend of the family who another family member went to go see, and he a female family member went to go see a male friend of the family. Okay, and he. Sorry. he was very forward to tell her about his interest in BDSM, bondage and sadomasochism, and all his gear and his leather, and he's into this, And he wanted approval. Oh, wow, but everyone thought it was weird, because it is weird, and it's not something that you should be telling people about what you're doing sexually. It wasn't, and he's completely heterosexual. You know what I'm saying? It's just that in and of itself. Like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with what? It's not so weird that you like it. It's weird that you're telling a friend of the family, someone like 40 years older. It's like an old lady. You're telling an old lady, what do you want the old lady to say? Oh, what do you like? Got your interests, fella, and he wanted to be approved. It's what he was into. What was his job? Security guard. Okay, just so you know. Yeah. Does that, shows you what it attracts. And hey, like I said, it's not because you do it. It's like, well, you got to show everybody. You know what I mean? And I get it. Here's the thing. People are like, well, because I've thought of this question. Because I'm like, hey, I'm married. People notice. When I walk with my wife, she holds my hand. She put her arm on me, or I'll take her in my arm, as we go. I might even kiss her in public, which I do. But, that's not, people don't get offended. But I see how to be like, well, why can't I just publicly display the things I like? Because somewhere there's a line of decency. Like, I may give her a kiss, but I'm not going to get all passionate on her in public. That when I mean a kiss, I mean, mwah, like not like I don't get all, frisky. Things that are not normally, things that have traditionally not been celebrated, but looked down on. And I believe in people's right to privacy. But that's the point. You have a right to privacy. You can have a private life in which you do what you do. There's certain things that are publicly acceptable. And I certainly don't lose my mind if I see, if I ever saw, I've never seen it, if I saw a guy give another guy a kiss in public, as long as it, as long as they keep it, don't get too frisky on me here, buddy. As long as they keep it quick, like I do. If they're holding hands, I'm not gonna lose my mind. It's like, I'm not, whatever. It's like, you be you. I don't agree with it. But I'm certainly not, I think you have a right to, I sometimes do goofy stuff in public, and whatever, I act out. So as far as like, I don't mind outraging people, and I understand why people want to outrage other people, but there are certain lines, or you don't have a civil society. And there's certain things, especially, when they try to get at kids with the sexual stuff, really annoys me, because it's like I really worked hard to protect my kids from the perversion that I was exposed to when I was a kid, and I was successful for the most part, as far as I know, as has been reported. But I guess all that. The point is, we have a nation that is got some sort of, we have a strong attachment to the Lord, but at the same time, it's becoming lawless. Here's the thing. Don't fear, and I say it should cause people to fear or be worried. I mean, not you, but I mean, they ought to be worried about it. They should be afraid of what they're doing, because they're going to damage the country. As far as me, I think about, hey, they're going to damage the country, but the Lord will preserve us. Just like there was Isaiah was around to write this, to say who gave Jacob for a spoil. Jacob, you're Jacob, and the people in Israel who are still remaining and not been carried away captive. Nevertheless, there was that line where it said, the Assyrian came up against all the defense cities of Judah and took them. He took all their defense cities. And then carried them away into captivity, many of them, many of them. And there was only a remnant left, a portion. It said at one point, yet in it shall be a tenth, as a teal tree. I don't know if there was 90% depopulated. That would be insane. I don't know what the depopulation level was, but many were carried into captivity, many were slain. And their riches were carried off to the land of the Assyrians, which was eventually then spoiled by somebody else, but that doesn't matter. The fact is that when we sin against God, when we sin against the natural order even, and that's what I'm talking about, like, our unnatural passions are not the thing of public discourse. Public discourse should be talking about responsible things that are of public concern. Like, there's no public interest in your little life, generally. And there's no, I know we have marriage and all that stuff, but it's like, that, I don't know what to do about that. I think it's ridiculous to have a man marry a man. It's just not, it's silly. It's not a marriage. It's just it's the law. It's a legal marriage, but it's not a real marriage. But whatever. It's just a contractual thing then of the same nature as marriage and called marriage, but it can't be a marriage because they don't have the hardware to marry. Because marriage you consummate the marriage with sexual intercourse. And what they do is not sexual intercourse, it's something else. It's just extreme play, let's call it. You know what I mean? Because they can't have intercourse. No homosexual couple can complete sexual intercourse. They can't do it. So they just can't be married. And then you say a man, what about a man who had his penis chopped off? Oh, whatever. It's like, well, in a sense, he couldn't sire children. He could marry legally in the same way, but they couldn't really become husband and wife and bear children the way marriage is really. They cling to each other, they become one, and they produce more. That's what marriage is about. Life partners and all that, sure. But a lot of history, people didn't much worry about romance or any of that other stuff. They were mostly concerned with the next, with surviving and providing for the next generation. And that is precisely the primary function of marriage. That's why it's an essential institution and shouldn't have been put into this, I don't know. Whatever. Like I said, like that, here's the thing. You can pass all the law. I don't think the law aspect, I still think the same as I've always thought. The law, trying to go after them through the law and defense of marriage acts and all that stuff, it was only provocative. I know they won't stop wanting more. But I don't think but the problem is the law is not the way to stop them. They just get louder and louder. If the foundations be destroyed, what shall the righteous do? You have to, if there's no faith in the land. Like, I can't change any of this. We can only, here's the thing. On some level, it was extremely, the pandemic became distressing because now all of a sudden the government's getting involved in my life. More in a way I don't care for. I mean, it's already annoying enough to have to deal with it, but then to have it intruded in such an intrusive way. But at the same time, it's kind of exciting because there's a fight. You know what I mean? And there's something to say. Even if you don't win, it doesn't matter because the Lord is looking at how we acquit ourselves in the midst of the battle. You know what I mean? It's like it's not, the victory is the Lord's. So if we win or lose, it's all the Lord's doing. The question is how I will fight. As I said, I'm going to fight. And then if it's a losing battle, it doesn't matter because all I was supposed to do is I had to fight. There's no options. I mean, there are options. I could just go bury myself somewhere, go hide and pretend like it isn't happening, pretend like there's nothing to say. Like there's no part that we have to play in this. Other than me said, I'm not big on mingling my religion with government, but look at Isaiah. Isaiah is very focused on the government because of in a certain thing. I don't like a lot of policies and stuff like that, but when you start getting lawless, that's of a major concern. You know what I mean? It is not good. And I know there's they use things called discretion. But when they use it unrighteously to the robbers, if we don't walk in his ways, and in a sense, it already happened. We've already been robbed. All that debt. But what happens is, someone was saying, like, I think it was Ben Shapiro was talking about, like, the spending they're trying to do. It's like they want to take out a second credit card. No. They want to take out 102nd credit card. Or a trillion, or the trillionth credit card, or whatever. And how many generations do you think that can go on where we keep kicking the ball down the stream? Like at this time, at this generation, they've spent so many trillions of dollars. What shall the next generation do when they need infrastructure or whatever? They're just going to make even more money? There'll be no repercussions? How are they going to pay the old debts? I mean, why tax the people to death when you can just make up money? Why tax people at all? Why not just print the money the government needs? Because that's exactly what they do. Are they ever going to really pay it back in taxes? Will they ever have the guts to take that money back from the American people? The cry that will come up from them will be such as never been heard when they try to take the money from the people again to pay for this someday. The hue and cry. As I say, it's either slavery or war. I'm not sure which. Probably war. Because they want to... I don't know. I don't know. You got to understand when you're on fire. You got to understand when your house is burning down. And that's unfortunate when they don't, isn't it? Well, there we go. We'll pick it up with chapter 43 tomorrow. Either form it for it's a but. It's not even an obvious chapter break, but whatever. We're gonna try to stitch it together without having to read the whole book. All right, let's start with chapter 1. Remember where we were at. And we'll read up to 42 real quick. Yeah. So we'll see you tomorrow.
I have a long time holding my peace. I have been still and refrain myself. Now I will cry like a woman in labor. I will destroy and devour at once. I will make waste mountains and hills and dry up all the herbs. And I will make the rivers islands, and I will dry up the pools. And I will bring the blind by way of nuts. I will lead them in paths that are known. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked things straight. These things will I do to them, and not forsake them. They shall be turned back. They should be greatly ashamed that trust in grace.